Hello, friends, and welcome to Coach Cut's Corner. Streaming bright from Michigan's capital city, this podcast is dedicated to helping you better understand the who, the what, and the why of mental performance, personal growth, and Lansing Stars baseball. Coach Cut's Corner, brought to you by Eyewash.
In collaboration with Lansing Community College.
And now here's your host, Stephen Cutter.
Welcome to Coach Cut's Corner, where we challenge limits, push for greatness, and develop athletes who thrive on and off the field. We've built a program centered on discipline, self-belief, and relentless preparation. Each week, I bring you insights from my coaching journey, conversations with high performers, and lessons that drive winning habits. If you're serious about growth, whether as a player, coach, or leader, you're in the right place. Let's get after it. Today, we're breaking down self-belief, why it's the difference maker, and how you can build it. Jeff's with me today. Jeff, when you think about self-belief in sports, what comes to mind?
I think that there are a lot of things that go into self-belief. I think that it's kind of a process more than just one thing. I believe that it really starts with having a big goal, and then you develop a plan towards that goal, and then you put in action. And when things get hard, I think the positive self-talk can kind of play a big key into that. I think that when you really boil it down, though, it really comes down to that action that you put into your goal, because that confidence comes from that preparation.
Yeah. I think it's not just confidence. It's trust in yourself with the ability to figure things out. I believe that true self-belief is not loud. It's built through consistency, and it's built through actions, and it's built through work and not words. And often have used Henry Ford's quote of whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I've used that for, it feels like a number of years now, and really seen players with like all the talent in the world struggle because they didn't believe in themselves. And the opposite is also true. Guys with less talent, but also have extreme beliefs in their work, end up winning. And we talk a lot, internal with our coaches and stuff about how we're really careful not to impact the self-belief. If somebody has a higher belief than themselves than what they actually are able to do, we really don't touch that, because it's so hard to build self-belief. You need processes, and it's really hard if you're just going to rely on success in life to build self-belief. Yeah. You don't get a ton of that all the time, so your self-belief is going to grow, and then it's going to shrink, and then it's going to grow, and then it's going to shrink with every failure. And so you got to have some processes in place, and it becomes one of these things that it's super important to have a belief system. Yep. And we really saw it firsthand. I mean, that our first year here, that team that went to the College World Series went 44-11 that year. That was a absolute study of a belief system. Absolute 100%. So when you see things like that and you can look back on it, you can really take a lot of notes from things like that. You can say, wow, the belief system is so important for yourself or your team, or, just the individuals in itself.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you believe that self-belief is a skill, not a trait?
I think that it is definitely a skill that you can develop. I think that some people are born with kind of a higher self-belief system, but it can always be grown through repetition and through,
100%. People assume confidence is something you either have or you don't, which is also false. Self-belief is built, just as you said, with repetitions. It's built the same way a great swing or a dominant fastball is. Yeah. It will stick to baseball only, but it's reps, it's preparation, and it's the the big C word. Consistency is a superpower. It's built through those things.
Yeah.
It's developed through skill, and it's not the will to win that matters. I think everybody has that, right?
Oh,
I mean, everybody wants to win. It comes down to the will to prepare, which goes into the consistency, and you start building it. Jeff, you worked with a lot of players. What have you seen that separates those who build belief from those who don't?
Well, it really goes back to what you were just talking about, that will to prepare and that will to win, kind of. And the will to win doesn't necessarily mean everything in that situation, because like you said, everybody's going into it wanting to win. I don't think anybody goes and competes and wants to lose. But I think that the thing that really separates people is that mindset of being able to handle those failures and moments and realize that that's not the end of the line, that there's going to be another opportunity, and that failure in itself is an opportunity to learn and grow from it. I think the guys that are able to do that really flourish when they have a high self-belief system, but the guys that aren't able to see that really are kind of what we consider streaky players. They'll get the super high highs and the super low lows, and
it's the roller coaster, for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's some enemies of self-belief. I think there's a lot of them, but I kind of want to talk about a few of them. Comparison is the first one I want to talk about that really affects self-belief and comparison theory. And when you're constantly comparing yourself to somebody else, you're always going to find somebody that is better. Yeah. And whatever that better might be is going to be defined by you, whatever you're looking for. The same could be said, though, with the comparison that you can always find somebody that's had it worse.
Yeah.
But very seldom does our minds go to who has it worse. We're always looking for who has it better. And so comparison is the thief of joy, and it is the enemy of self-belief. And then the external validation. If you're going around looking for external validation to grow your self-belief, right, that's going to be pretty challenging. Yeah. You're going to have to be in a pretty special environment where somebody's telling you you're doing a great job every 15 seconds for that self-belief to keep growing. And then finally, the one of the biggest ones is fear of failure. Yeah. That fear is a real thing, and it sits there, and the fear of failure affects your self-belief immensely because you're just always worried about what could happen. Yeah. And then it goes back to like what you were talking about, where you're riding a roller coaster, and the wins feel great that you have in your day, and the losses feel absolutely horrible. And the self-belief system is just going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Have you noticed anything in your journey about the comparison theory or fear of failure? As I'm kind of talking about these stories a little bit, is there some things that pop up to you?
Yeah, from a personal standpoint, I think I kind of fell into that trap of the comparison, and it never really helped me. I mean, it motivated me at times, but then when you kind of take a step back, you realize that everybody's running a different race. And I think that it's important to really boil it down to you versus you. And are you getting better today than you were yesterday? Yeah. Kind of just lining up those smaller goals and knocking them down to build that self-confidence. And I think that goes a long way.
Yeah. I remember when I was trying to get into coaching, starting the first piece of the journey, the comparison theory was running wild, because I'm looking around at everything that was better. Every coach that had, was at this level or knew this or was speaking here or impacting here, and it was incredibly tough on the belief system. And if your belief system's challenged, you're going to have a hard time leading others as well. And so I struggled with a lot of that. I remember going in and speaking to a coach He was the head baseball coach at Hope College, and it was Stu Fritz, and he was there for a long time and had a ton of success.
Yeah.
And, this was probably 10 years ago at this point, and I went into his office and I was asking him all kinds of questions. And I remember he talked about the comparison theory, and that comparison was the thief of joy. And, I was taking notes, but that was one of the things that's stuck with me. And as I used it more, it became more about like what you were saying, like you have to run your own race.
Yeah.
You can't constantly looking around at what everybody else is doing. And I think in today's society, it makes it really hard for us because what everybody else is doing is so easily available because of our phones and computers and things like that. But I know you've worked with a lot of players, and what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes you see young athletes make when it comes to self-belief?
One of the biggest mistakes I think that I've seen is kind of, I guess I would call it false confidence, where you have that confidence in yourself, but you have not put those actions into place. So I think that can really be detrimental, and that's really where you see a lot of the guys that ride the super high highs and the super low lows and kind of that emotional roller coaster. But I think that just having that base confidence, or what I just called false confidence, is a really great stepping stone. I think that somebody just needs to put it into perspective for those players that have that said false confidence, and just let them know that there is a process to it, and it's not just walking out there with your chest big and thinking that you're the greatest out there. You have to put in the work in order to see those results, and the more work you put in, the more results you end up seeing.
Yeah, it's really solid. And we kind of talked about the enemies of it. I want to talk about the other side of it, the other side of self-belief, and that's when athletes bet on themselves.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of those things that you're like, I love to see that.
The best stories.
You don't see it all the time, and so I'd like to label that as it's an outlier. I want to talk about Jose Altuve real quick. He was too small to make it. It's I'm sure you remember the Jose Altuve story.
Oh yeah.
But I'll talk about it a little bit. Like he went to an open tryout, and they basically labeled him as too small. They thought he was older than what he was. He was lying about his age. They told him to go home. Basically, he begged and pleaded. He came back the next day and kind of really just begged to give him an opportunity to go on the field and take batting practice, and somebody allowed him to do that, and he put on an absolute show. So his actions, they signed him for a ridiculously low amount. I think it was around 10 or 15,000 that day after that, and I think everybody kind of knows the rest of the story.
Yeah.
But that's what it looks like. That's a great story for what it looks like to bet on yourself when people are telling you can't do it. If you struggle with self-belief, you will never get to that point.
No, right.
And so that's how important it is. But do you relate to the Altuve story? Did you understand that story and know it?
Oh yeah. I knew that one very well, because I feel like I always kind of fell into that category of being undersized. But I think that players and people hearing that story, it really gives you some motivation to know that, like, yeah, there might be some people along the way that don't think that you can do it, but as long as you believe that you can do it and you put in the work to get there, and just having a mindset of just give me one shot, let me show you. I'm not going to give you a choice. I think that's an amazing story, and I think a lot of people can learn from that.
Do you think you could share, maybe from a coach's perspective, how maybe we or you have evaluated players beyond raw ability, where you're looking for some of that stuff?
Yeah. I think that a big thing that I look for in players is how they respond to failure. I think that you can tell a lot about a person's personality and the way they carry themselves, of how they react when they things aren't going great, when they're 0 for 3, are they going back to the dugout and slamming a helmet, or getting mad at teammates and pointing fingers? And I think that the great team players and the guys that are really instrumental pieces to those great teams are able to just kind of take those failures and learn from them. And like we talk about pretty often, that 5-second rule. You sit on it, you respond, and then you keep moving forward. You go to the next pitch and you do whatever you can to help the team win. And I think that being able to do that, you're going to see a lot more success, because you're not really relying so much on your own personal statistics, but more so just helping the team win.
Yeah, you're talking a lot about emotional toughness, but you're also hitting really heavily on the belief system, and whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're most often going to be right. And when you fail, if your belief system isn't really high, it's frustrating, and you're not sure if you can actually get back up off the mat again. If your belief system's high, you just look at it as a bump in the road. It still is not great. It's not a fun thing to fail, but it's a bump in the road, and you're going to get back up, and that's the difference. And I really believe that there's ways to build unshakable self-belief and ways to build belief systems, and it starts with action, and it starts with the ability to stack proof to yourself daily. And that proof can come in a lot of forms, and we don't record long enough podcasts to talk about all the forms, but the proof can show up daily with what you do, and that's through process, and that's 100% on you. And when you do these things, that stacks proof for you that, oh, the belief system is starting to grow because I'm doing these +1s. I'm winning this moment, and that's where the belief system starts growing. I think another one would be controlling your input, meaning, the not looking around at all times to see what others are doing. You're controlling the input. You're controlling what's going into your mind, what you're seeing. Social media, once again, is one of those things where you don't have any control. You're taking in things. Not all those things are bad by any stretch, but you're taking in stuff and you don't have any control over it. And that's where the comparison theory will start jive. Oh, look at this person driving this car, this Lambo, whatever it might be. And then and the next thing, which I'll let you speak on a little bit, but really trying to detach from the results or the outcomes. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah. That it kind of goes back to what I was talking about a minute ago of realizing that failure isn't the end of the line. It's more so about doing whatever you can to move forward and to learn from that failure. And when you're able to do that, the game kind of slows down, and it becomes a lot more simple. And the higher the level you get in different sports, the more the game kind of speeds up on you, and any way that you can learn to slow that down is extremely beneficial. So I think that breaking it down into, not necessarily completely ignoring the failures, because there's always something that you can learn from them, but being able to take that and just keep moving with it.
Being able to detach from the outcomes is a hard thing for everybody. I believe it's been put into us from grade school. Yeah. And you're rewarded for passing the test or doing great on the test. You're rewarded for scoring 20 points. You're rewarded for all these things. You get medals, et cetera, et cetera. Being able to detach from the outcome and focus more on what your process is. Reward yourself for your processes, not somebody else's processes, but your processes. What does it take to have a +1 here? And we talk about the snooze button, we talk about making your bed, whatever it might be. That doesn't have to be for everybody, but it needs to be. You need to define what your process is. And then beyond the fourth thing, beyond stacking proof, controlling your input, detaching from outcomes, the last thing is winning the mental battle. Yeah. And that's your voice in your head saying there's somebody better. You're not enough. You can't do this. that to really stack self-belief, you have to win the mental battle. And sometimes the best way to do that is stop listening to yourself and start talking to yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think a really great example of that is, a guy that had probably one of the highest self-belief systems in Kobe Bryant. They asked him, are you ever nervous to take that game-winning shot? And he responded, no, I've done it a million times. Why would I be nervous now?
Right.
It's just being able to reinforce the work that you've done and go into it with confidence from that work.
Which he's talking about, he probably did it, so many times in his head. He did it so many times on the court. He did it so many times in practice. Right. It's one of those things where it's a process. Quick question for you. What's a moment where you had to bet on yourself?
I feel like there's been a lot in my
Really?
life. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, I kind of enjoy being bet against. So I feel like that's a big key for me. But one instance that I think of specifically is after my shoulder surgery in 2016. I got my shoulder surgery and I was going through the rehabilitation process, and during that time we ended up having a coaching change at the school that I was at. So I was, kind of stuck without a school to play at for the next year. And yeah, I had people telling me, maybe you should just hang it up. Maybe you should, just get a full-time job, join the union. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's different paths for everybody, but I just knew that was not my goal and that I still had unfinished business. So I bet on myself, and I moved down to San Angelo, Texas with my best friend from high school, and he was going through a rehabilitation process at that time too. And we thought there's not a better opportunity for both of us to come back from this. So went down there and we treated every day like it was going to be the day that we had an opportunity to go and make another team. So I mean we were throwing every day, lifting every day, eating right, kind of studying up on the mental game, not as much as I have recently, but starting to study it. And I went and tried out for a couple schools down there and fell a little short, kind of going back to the undersized thing. And I thought that, man, if I'm that close to making these teams, then there's definitely somewhere that I can keep playing. So even after going down there and what some people would kind of see as a failure of not making those teams, I said, I'm just going to keep going. And I found Bay College in the next year or so and was lucky enough to go and play on that first year team there. And I think through those kind of trials and tribulations, I really developed a lot of self-belief and kind of helped me step into a leadership role there. And from there, I kind of realized that I can carry that into coaching. And I think that I'm still kind of betting on myself, and there's no better way to do it, I don't think.
I love that. That's it. Start stacking proof. You don't need permission to believe in yourself. You just need to put in the work and the action. Let's make it happen. Make winning in life your habit, not your goal. Excellence isn't an outcome. It's a daily standard. My mission is to build athletes and teams that compete at the highest level, not just on game day, but in every aspect of their journey. Build the right habits, lead with the right intent, and push yourself beyond the limits others set for you. And don't forget to cherish the small moments. They'll pass by in a blink of an eye. Until next time, keep stacking bricks and go Stars. Coach Cut's Corner is recorded live in the WLNZ studios. Engineering and production assistance are provided by Dedalia and Lowry. Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed today's podcast, please share it and follow us on all the platforms of social media. You can find more about our program at lccstars.com, and donations to our baseball program can be made at the same site. See you next time.